Good morning, everybody. This is Walk the Dog with Riot Mort. Come on, that opening, it's such a corny opening, but I don't know. It's my opening. It's what I do. It is Sunday. The weather is gorgeous. It is nice and sunny and cool, and it is a great day compared to yesterday. It is 7 a.m., and to give you an idea, I don't need that much sleep that often. Usually I would say I get about 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep a day. But sometimes I get these random headaches that are sort of like, you're going too hard. Last night was one of those nights, so I crashed pretty early. And I didn't TLDR, I got about 9.5 hours of sleep. My body was sort of going, hey, you need to sleep. But you know what? I feel good. When I do that, I feel good. I feel energized. Now I just want to get stuff done. But, no, I'm not going to log onto my work computer and start working on a Sunday. So, first things first, though, time to do my morning walk, get my exercise. And that means answer your guys' questions. Today's are interesting, so let's dive right in. All right, first question. What were the design goals of the new item update? Yeah, so, okay, I obviously can't go into everything here because as a starting point, we're for set 15, we're doing a thing. Okay, so that's the starting point. Literally, the first thing that started this chain of events was we're doing this thing. Now, I can't talk about this thing, obviously. But this thing has side effects. It's cool. We need to, in order to support this, some of the items are going to have to change. And so Giovanni, who's heading up this project, he went through and sort of did his proposed item changes, with the primary goals being A, to support the thing, and B, to, while you're there making item changes, you may as well improve the items that people don't seem excited by or have been kind of an issue for a while or haven't been supporting our primary format. This is things like Hurricane, which I've talked about before, that wasn't very well built, or Redemption, which is more like a support item than a tank item, stuff like that. So upon doing that, then, we look at that proposal and we start to see, hey, are there any other changes or any other goals we need to be meeting here? So for example, I think when both Alex Cole and I, Blue Velvet, looked at the list of changes, we kind of went, this is a lot. And combined with the thing, as well as, everything else, it's this is too much, right? Because players typically don't, we've talked about this before, that the core skill of learning items and things like that, having them change again is going to be a lot. And so we looked at those and we went, hey, I think one of the goals needs to be, we need to do this in as low of a change amount as possible, because we're already doing quite a bit. So an example here was, and I can talk about this now, Giovanni's original version did have Flicker Blade as the new base item, but that was an example where we went, you know what, having, especially Ginsu's of all items, having players go, it's my first game of set 15, I haven't played since set 12, I have a bow and a rod, I'm going to build a Ginsu's, and then be like, what the heck is this new thing? Really didn't seem like the play. So that was an example where it's look, let's make sure that new Ginsu's is really, really damn similar to old Ginsu's. And then, it's a little different, but not that much. And so then we go back and did another pass on all of our items, trying to make them as low change as possible. For example, I think at one point Guard Breaker was a completely different item. And again, it was does it really need to be a different item? Or can it be pretty close to the same item with slight improvements? Trying to minimize that change while still keeping, while still supporting the thing. Oh, and then one other goal was also just generally items we find that have a pretty narrow use set tend to be kind of the trickiest, right? This is, items that it's like, well, it only works on like these 1 or 2 types of champions. Compare that to something like BT, which has become a very flexible, can put it on lots of types of champions, and it's fine, So we did all that, and we had it all ready, and we're looking at this list of changes, and we're feeling pretty good about this full list. But it's still a pretty chunky list. And so something we had success with previously was, taking something we have planned. Like if you look at, let's say set 15 came out today, right? The list of all the changes of all the 15, the new champions, et cetera, combined with all the new, it's like all of that in total is still a lot of change. It's a lot of like making the game very, very different. And so, we did this with artifacts previously, where it was like, why don't we ship some of it now, get players used to it for a month or 2, and then ship the rest with set 15 so that the whole package doesn't seem like such a gigantic package that could cause people to just be like, man, there's way too much different. So we went through our item changes and was like, okay, which ones can we ship early? Which ones are relatively low impact, right? Like the Ginsu's change is a good example of this, because it's like the difference before and after isn't that insane. And all the same champion, like it still supports the set. It still works in 14. No problem. So, we decided to ship, some of these changes and gather them all up and put them in a package. Now, this isn't all the item changes. Spoiler, there are some more item changes coming with 15, but those ones can't be shipped early because they much more support the thing, So that was kind of our big goal, was get that ready. And so it'll all make a lot more sense as we get closer to set 15. But yeah. And again, all of this comes back to our core item system is the thing that players learn set over set. People always ask me, it's like, well, what do I need to do to learn the game? And I'm like, learn the item system. And so if you're like, I'm going to learn the item system, and then all of a sudden it changes drastically, that's pretty rough, right? The rule for what type of champions exactly you want Ginsu's now will change, right? And that's a new thing you have to learn. And every time a game says, hey, I need you to relearn stuff, it's painful. It's painful for a lot of people. So, yeah, I think that's all I can really say for now. Oh, for all I know, I've said a little too much, giving a little bit of, but yeah, and that's one of the nice things about our patching process is the fact we can do this, the fact that we can, the uphill part, the fact that we can let people, ship stuff early, get people used to it. It also makes the set just feel like, hey, there's still updates coming every few patches, which feels fun and exciting. So, yeah. There you go. Okay. Next question. Oh, this one's easy. Favorite style of unit. So, obviously, when people ask me questions like, what's your favorite blank? I have to give 2 different answers, right? One is Mort the player's hat, right? Like, I, as a player of video games, of someone who loves video games, what do I like? But also, that's very separate than what Mort the designer likes. Whew. Need to drink more water. Okay. Because what Mort the designer likes is what's good for our audience, not what's good for the game, So, for example, Mort the player, I like 2 things. Dot champions. I find the dot fantasy really fun. Watching people constantly like tick down, almost die. Malzahar, that Brambulance comp from set 5. I love those comps. That's why I'm sad like Morgana reroll isn't that playable. So And then I like blue buff users. I like rapid casters. Stuff like set 10 Annie is really fun. So, as a player, those are the ones I like. The other one that comes to mind is stacking champions. Set 9 Cho'Gath, set 10 Yasuo, set 14 Shaco. Getting those stacks and seeing how high a score you can get, very fun. Very fun. But as a designer, what champions do I tend to like? Well, it's funny. You have to, okay, for the sake of this conversation, you have to ignore the current power level and focus on the design. But I feel like champions like Brand are like the quintessential well-designed spell for TFT. And what I mean by that is it's an AoE mage that has like a solid 70 mana casting cost, hits pretty hard. It's like, oh, that is an impactful magic spell. And then also like doesn't fizzle too often because the 3 splashes hits the backline. I think generally that type of spell. Now you can nitpick and be like, okay, well the travel time should be faster. Yeah, probably true. There's probably a better casting spell that would have worked that has that travel time. But that sort of, again, like that 70 mana impactful spell is a really good design. Aphelios is this to some extent too, right? It's like he casts, he does that big AoE slam, and then his auto attacks after feel really chunky and feel really good. So I think, again, as a designer, having those really satisfying 4 costs are really, really good. And then the other one I'll call out is the 5 costs. The very, very memorable 5 costs that 2 years from now you'll still remember. Right? For me, the best example of this has always been Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench from set 6. The memories I have of hitting 3-star Tahm Kench and giving him 10,000 AP, or just, feeding him and getting him big. That Tahm Kench was very, very fun. In a more recent example, I think Garen. I think Garen is a good example where it's like, that's a 5 cost people are going to remember. I think if anything, the one negative about Garen is we kind of like balanced him too well. And what I mean by that is like, even the games where you feel like Garen's running away with it and you get like 3 or 4 mods, they don't feel that insane compared to like a Tahm Kench with 400 AP. So you don't really get the same highs that you get from like something like Tahm Kench. But Garen's another good example. And so as a designer, like I said, really solid 4 costs with satisfying spells, and then very memorable, unique 5 costs with unique mechanics. That'd probably be my answer. So, what about you guys? What's your favorite? This is where if I were an actual YouTuber, by the way, I always avoid doing stuff like this, and I have for 6 years now. But I'd be like, tell me what your thoughts are. Put a comment in the thing, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I find that so obnoxious. You notice it in all my videos, I've never done that. So, but maybe that's why I don't have 1 million followers. Lol, lol, lol. Okay. All right, this next section is a little weird. Someone posted a couple of rapid questions. I'm supposed to answer these rapid questions. All right, 3-star 3 cost or 2-star 4 cost. So, if we're talking power, the 3-star 3 cost should be more powerful. If we're talking satisfaction, the 2-star 4 cost. And the reason I say that is generally 2-star 4 costs tend to have enough power built in them that the way you can play them tends to be pretty flexible. I think Xayah is an example of this, where it's like, you can play her in Marksman Vanguard, or you can play her in Anima Squad. Cool. Aphelios, you can play him in Marksman Vanguard, or you can play him in Golden Ox. Cool. Vex, even pretty flexible. Vexotech, right now being the main one, but even Vertical Divinicore. So, I don't know. I like the fact that they're a lot more flexible. Whereas like a 3-star 3 cost, usually there's like one way to play it. So, final answer, 2-star 4 cost. All right. AD or AP comp? Oh, this one's tough. So I'm going to say AD comp because it's easier to balance. That's what I'm going to say. AD champions are so easy to balance because so much of their damage is distributed evenly through the auto attacks. I always use Yumi as the example of this. If you remember set 8 Yumi, the problem with Yumi was the difference in her spell doing 49% of their health or 38% of their health didn't matter, right? Because all that really mattered with Yumi was how many times did I cast. If it takes me 2 casts, good to kill you, good. If it takes me 3 casts, we're screwed, right? Because AP has that sort of property where you have to base it off the number of casts. And so in Yumi's case, the difference between going from 51% of your health to 99% of your health, you could have all that extra AP and damage. Didn't matter. Didn't matter because it was still 2 casts. You know, and so that's a really weird property that casters have that I've always hated. But it's like, as soon as you hit 100% of their health, okay, cool, you're one-shotting, and this Yumi's insane. Whereas AD casters and AD users, it's like, literally you just count their DPS, right? The champion is doing 100 DPS. Now they're doing 110 DPS. And that matters because it's coming from auto attacks. It speeds up how quick you get to start autoing the next target. And it literally is just a function of time, right? And so you can balance AD users as a function of time, and giving an AD user plus 3 AP or 3 AD matters a lot. It changes things a lot. But a caster, not so much. So my answer is going to be AD comps because they're easier to balance. Players also realize that, and it's like, they can't verbalize what I just said, but it's like, it feels more satisfying, right? Like, Ginsu's users are more stable. They perform exactly as you'd expect them to. So, yeah. All right. Concept work or polish work? This is another fun one. If you asked 100 designers to answer this question, I would bet you 95 of them would say concept work. Concept work's the fun part. I get to come up with wild, fun ideas. Wouldn't it be cool if your Hearthstone card did this? Wouldn't it be cool if your champion for League of Legends did this? Wouldn't it be cool if your TFT augment did this thing? That'd be fun. You get to sit there and just come up with fun ideas. Because a lot of, especially junior designers, that's what they think game design is just like sitting there going, this is fun, this would be cool, this would be neat. Not really thinking through the game mechanics, not really thinking through the impact those designs have on the rest of the set. But I think 95 designers would say that. And to some extent, I agree. But what I'll also tell you is I've learned over 20 years of doing this, that's not what I'm good at. That's what a lot of other people are good at. There's a bunny there. Hey, bunny. I'm not going to, nope, it's okay. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me see. It's like right there by the green box. It's just chilling there. Hey, bunny. Hi. Okay, this is my halfway point, so I'm going to leave. You can chill and eat your grass. All right, bye, bunny. Anyway, what I've been learning over 20 years is that my special power is the polish phase. I'm the guy who understands if you change this, that means this is true, which will change this, and players will respond this way. So I just recognize that, if Riot were to fully utilize me, what they would do is they would come up with some brilliant game idea that they want to do, get the initial setup going, and then point me at it and go, Mort, finish it. That's my special power. That's what I did at Nintendo for 11 years, right? My boss would go, we're making a Mario versus Donkey Kong game with this mechanic. And I'd go, okay, here are 20 other mechanics we can include that are based off that. And here's how many levels we can make, and we can make them fast, and we can ship them, and out it goes, That, like, putting the game together, the actual work. The part of game design that, like, most people don't realize is 98% of the job is the part I'm really, really good at. So, TLDR here, my answer is, for me, polish phase, because it's what I'm good at, and it helps get games out the door so that they don't sit in 7-year development hell, because that's what I do. That's my job. All right. Only prismatic or only silver augments? This is easy. This is easy. Would you rather play a game of TFT where your augments are gain 1 item? Or would you rather play a game of TFT with birthday present and call chaos? Like, come on, man. Prismatic augments are just so much more fun. Now, triple prismatic games are a little insane. That would be the drawback of this choice. Every triple prismatic game having every capped board. But I think if the question is like, which one do I eliminate from the game? I would eliminate silvers in a heartbeat. Silvers are just like, they're the closest we can get to still water hold without being still water hold. There are like 3 fun silver augments, in my opinion, as my gamer archetype. And those 3 in particular are the ones people complain about. Recombobulator, Pandora's Bench. Yeah, stuff that can still have some of those high, exciting moments. But, you know, then I get the, can you believe Pandora's Bench is a silver? Because there was that one game where someone hit 2 3-star forecasts. And it's like, yeah, that's how it works. Or Survivor. Survivor's very fun. Some of these high-risk ones. I do love AFK. Don't get me wrong. I like AFK. I like delayed start. Sorry. There are some good silver augments. But overall, I feel like the prismatic augments tend to make the game more exciting. Now, there is one little curveball to this question, which is I find prismatic 2-1s to be some of the most fun in the game. Prismatic 3-2s, we got work to do. Prismatic 4-2s, I think, are mixed. I think there's some really, really good ones and some really, really bad ones. I know Soju hates 4-2 prismatic. I like Golden Egg. I like Call to Chaos. I like some of the circlets, stuff like that. But 3-2, it feels like there's nothing in the 3-2 space that really wows you, you know? So, pros and cons of each choice. But again, for my player type, so again, player designer answer, right? Player answer, prismatic, easy. Designer answer, probably still prismatic. Probably still prismatic, just because that tends to be what our players like. All right, and then the last one for this little section, I believe, was burgers or pizza. Okay, this one's easy. If I have to pick an answer, it's pizza. But let me give you the very clear rule here. The best burger in the world is better than the best pizza in the world, okay? But the sheer variety you can get from pizza would make you not go insane compared to burgers. I've had lots of different types of burgers, and there are some great ones, but a burger's a burger, you know? Whereas pizza, man, the difference between a pepperoni pizza and a Chicago stuffed crust pizza, and a taco pizza, and a garlic chicken pizza, whew, that variety would keep me entertained. So pizza, final answer. All right. The last question, probably one of the riskier questions I've been asked. I feel like I can't answer all of it, but it said, you're a designer who has hot takes. What are your designer hot takes? And so this is a really complicated question because, like I said, I definitely approach games and game development very differently than a lot of my colleagues, than a lot of what I've seen the Western game market do. And so I'm going to have some really hot takes. Now, I'm going to try to give you the ones that I can say without getting in trouble. But again, these are just my personal opinion. They do not represent the opinion of my employer, et cetera, et cetera. These are just my opinion. So for example, here's a hot take. I believe a game's story if you're trying to make, there are two types of games, a game with game mechanics and a game with game story. And I think if you're trying to do both, you're probably doing at least one of them very, very poorly. So let me give you an example. The Last of Us. I know this is a very popular game. I did not enjoy that game. I thought the game mechanics were very, very bad. I thought they were bland, repetitive, uninteresting, and just felt like a mediocre shooter because the game director cared more about the story. And so it was like what I ended up doing with The Last of Us after about 4 hours was I quit and I watched the story. And the story was interesting. It was a good story, but I didn't want to play through their mediocre game mechanics to do it. My hot take is that if you're going to do a story game, do a story game, right? Do Telltale's Walking Dead. Do Detroit Become Human. I enjoy those games because I'm sitting down going, this is a story game. I'm here for the story, and it's great. Or do a mechanics game where you're playing a game for very good mechanics, like, say, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a good example of, like, good mechanics. People play that game for its game mechanics. But a lot of these Western game directors that want to be Hollywood people end up doing these really mediocre mixes of both that I just don't like, right? That's why I personally was not a big fan of like some of the later Metal Gear Solids. It's like, clearly he just wants to make a movie and the game is an excuse to do it. So that's one of my hot takes. Another hot take is that Western game devs do not know how to make video games. They create these production timelines where it's like, we're going to finish this game in 4 years. And they set up all these goals and milestones without really exploring their core game mechanics and making sure the game is fun first. I can count on more than one hand the number of prototypes I've played that are like starting to get polished art and looking like pretty solid. It's like, yeah, but just moving your character kind of sucks. What are you doing? How did you, like, something we learned at Nintendo was like, you focus on making sure that main thing feels good. Once that feels good, making the rest of the game is easy. That's just, making levels, making games, that's easy. But that core mechanic feeling really, really good, that's the hard part. And a lot of Western devs don't realize this. And so, like I said, you end up with these prototypes that like are way past where they should be. And then, shocker, the project gets canceled. And it's like, yeah, no kidding. One of the projects I worked on that was notorious for this, to throw Nintendo under the bus a little, was Project Hammer way back in the day. Project Hammer was like, the core mechanic was just boring. But it was like, well, we have a milestone, so you got to make 4 levels and you got to make new enemies. And it's like, but swinging the hammer doesn't feel good. Because at the time when we were making Project Hammer, the big comparison was like God of War 2. And everyone kept comparing it to God of War 2. And it was like, God of War feels really, really good. Kratos swinging those axes feels great. Meanwhile, our swinging our hammer is like, So, other hot takes. I mean, some of these are mild, but like, AAA games are a mistake. AAA games have done so much harm to the industry. You compare a game like, I don't know, let's give an example here. Halo 1 to Halo 5, and it's like, the things we can do with a small team always tend to seem to outperform these giant, insane teams. Now, that gets a little complicated with live service games, because live service games are essentially multiple small games, right? Like if you look at Fortnite, I think a game like Fortnite does need a big team because it's lots of like little projects, right? It's like, here's a project for this event, here's a project for this thing. So it makes sense usually for live service, but for like ship games, how many games really need a 500-person staff to get them out the door, and is it really worth it, right? Like, and again, I'll props to Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring is a good example of like how much you can do. Or obviously the big one that's been talked about recently is Expedition 33 and how much they accomplished with a small team. So my hot take is like the entire AAA market development just doesn't quite understand. It's like the concept of making games on a big team versus like a goal of what is our end product is so misaligned and so out of whack. Yeah, I don't know. I could probably keep going, but that's some of the big ones. I kind of mentioned one earlier, which is like a lot of game designers don't realize what game design is. 98% of game design work is not coming up with ideas. The way I always explain it to my team is the best game designer in the world has no good ideas, but recognizes all of them, right? I'm like, for example, I have to keep giving him props. RNG Golem was not my idea. It was Roger's. Roger was like, wouldn't we do something like this? All I did was go, holy crap, that's a way more fun idea. Here's what you need to make it work. Because I think his version was like 3 random items. And I went, no, that'd be too weak, but your 3 random thing is really, really good. And so you need to give him like an emblem, an artifact, and a radiant item. And he went, oh yeah, that's great. And then Kent went, yeah, that's good. And Kent did all the work to implement it. So Roger and Kent get all the credit. All I did was go, good idea. Do it, you know? But that's a very important skill, is understanding what ideas are good for your product, you know? But a lot of designers want to be the idea guy. They want to come up with in my cool game I have in my head, where you go to the world of whatever, and I want to tell my story. You know, that's not game design. So that's like creative direction, which is a very different skill. So anyway, I'm at the uphill part. I'm sure I could go more. Maybe catch me later and ask for more hot takes or something. I don't know. But there you go. I'm almost done with my walk. Gonna have some breakfast. My daughter's gonna babysit. My wife and I are gonna go out together, spend some time together. That should be fun. And then work tomorrow. So, cool. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoy these. I don't mind doing them. Good exercise. Burn those calories. And yeah. All right. That's gonna do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.